6PR. This is Remember When with Harvey Deegan.
It is indeed, and it's racing history time with Ernie Manning. How are you, Ern?
Yes, Harvey, very well. And tonight, very special guest in the studio.
We sure do.
Yes, Matthew Pavlinovich, who's a chairperson of the Midland District's Historical Society. And we're going to have a bit of a chat about an esteemed racecourse in Helena, Vale, which closed in 1983. But, it was a big history fact in WA racing.
Why did it close? Wasn't there enough business for it to remain open?
Well, it remains a bit of a mystery. In fact, so many people are disappointed, Harvey, that it did close. And Matthew's going to give us some of the background in just a short time. And just as a lead-in, today I attended a presentation, one of the best I've ever gone to. I've been to quite a few of these historical racing presentations, but Matthew, today at the old Midland Courthouse, packed crowd, standing room only, spoke in very eloquent terms and some wonderful photos, and it really captured attention of the Helena Vale era.
Wonderful. Matthew, welcome to the program. You're no stranger to the show, of course, but first time you've actually appeared in person here in the studio. Lovely to have you.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how long have you been involved with the Midland and District's Historical Society?
Since 2016.
Right, okay.
I'm the founding chairperson.
And today, Matthew has brought forward a couple of historical facts about Helena Vale. I spent so much time up there, but facts that I just didn't even imagine. And Matthew's got all this chronicled, and we'll be going through that very shortly. Some of it involves the Melbourne Cup winner, Blue Spec, and in a while we're going to chat about some of the great horses that trained up there, Harvey, including the all-time champion Kingston Town, who on his Perth visit trained exclusively at Helena Vale.
Righto. Now, where exactly is, for those that don't know, the Helena Vale Racecourse, and what's there now?
The Helena Vale Racecourse was on the site of what is now the Midvale industrial area off Great Eastern Highway in Midvale.
Yes, as you start to go up the hill, it's probably just as you approach the railway line bridge. It was to the left if you're heading towards Greenmount and on towards York and Northern. It was on the left-hand side, something like 150 acres, was it, Matthew?
That's correct, yes.
Yes, it was very expansive, and it was so well attended. We saw some photos today. The crowds were packed into Helena Vale during that era of the early 1900s onwards.
Yeah, it remained as a trial, a track for racing trials for a while, didn't it, Ernie?
Yes, it certainly did. I attended trials there until, well, it was either 1983 or 1984. Saw so many good horses trained there, and certain trainers made it their base there at Helena Vale. I first started attending race meetings there in 1967, but went right through to nearly 20 years at Helena Vale.
All right, well, we will be getting on to talking about some of the great horses that actually did do their training at Helena Vale, went on to bigger and better things. Matthew, just for those that may not know, your particular organisation, all volunteers, I appreciate that. How many are involved?
At the moment, we have just under 100 members.
Really? Wow.
Well, there's a lot of enthusiasm there, no doubt.
So, we take in all the suburbs within the 6056 postcode. So all the way from Baskerville in the north, on the eastern side of the Swan Valley, down to Helena Valley and Swanview, Midland, or that whole area. So
what do these people do? I mean, it's obviously something that they're very passionate about.
Yes. So what we've done is we collect artefacts, we collect stories, we collect photographs, and we're preserving them and recording, obviously, the history of the area and within those suburbs.
And how does the public access this history?
Well, basically through contacting us. We have some facilities at the workshops which are open by appointment. And if they just contact us, and we can take them through and show them what we have.
So, do you have a museum as such? Or
as such, we still don't have a museum.
Right.
That's our dream and our goal. But we have to start somewhere. And from considering we've only been around 5 or 6 years. to the point that we've got to and what we've able to achieve in those years, it's fantastic.
And you do have a good social media presence.
Yes, that's correct, because our society was born via social media. I ran a page called Remember Midland, and from Remember Midland, the Historical Society was formed from that from the popularity of that page.
Good-o. All right, well, now, you did mention the great Kingston Town, of course.
Yes.
And he was arguably one of the he was one of the greatest racehorses ever to grace the turf. And he won how many Cox Plates too?
He won 3 in a row. And I think
that's
it's
right.
It's a great compliment to the Helena Vale track and its standard, and that trainers like Bart Cummings, Tommy Smith, Colin Hayes all immediately headed towards Helena Vale when arriving in Perth.
Yeah. Well, let's have a listen to the closing stages. I'm laughing for a good reason. Of the 1982 Cox Plate, when it looked as though Kingston Town had no hope, because the race caller was known, and he was very accurate as the accurate one, Bill Collins. He wrote Kingston Town off in running, but guess what happened?
600 out, and Fearless Pride went up the Deb's mate and took a narrow lead. My Axman immediately made his run on the outside from L.A. Bajou and Lawman. Grosvenor trying to find his way through is Grosvenor with Kingston Town hard ridden. Then Gurner's Lane around the outside from No Peer and Magari Isle of Man. On the turn, 500 out, Fearless Pride and My Axman together. A length and a half Lawman. Kingston Town can't win. Then L.A. Bajou and the 3-year-old Grosvenor running on. My Axman took the lead from Fearless Pride. Grosvenor coming down the outside is after them. My Axman in front. Grosvenor and Kingston Town flashing. He might win yet, the champ. Grosvenor took the lead. Oh, Kingston Town swamping them. What a run. Kingston Town wins it next to Grosvenor. My Axman third. Fourth, Fearless Pride.
What an amazing run, because past the school there, about the 600, he's being hard ridden at that point when everyone else is making their runs, and didn't say he was going backwards, but he wasn't going, gathering them in as you would expect him to do. So what does that prove? It proves you've got a big heart, I suppose, and great stamina.
Certainly does. And within 3 weeks, he was at Helena Vale Racecourse after that epic performance at Midvale. He came straight over the Perth and got off the plane there, and Tommy Smith took him up to Helena Vale.
So what was his campaign in Perth after the Cox Plate?
Well, he won the Western Mail Classic, and then he just had a slight leg problem, so they eased him off. So it turned out that the Western Mail Classic was the last run of his career. So the training for his last run was done at Helena Vale.
Jolly good. And so is there any memorabilia of these great race horses anywhere around that did actually grace Helena Vale at one point or another, even for just one gallop?
In terms of memorabilia, or in terms of photographs, at Helena Vale itself, we don't have any photographs of Kingston Town, or there's some other racehorses that over the years that have also raced or trained there as well, but not, there's photos at other venues, but not at Helena Vale.
Yes, well, one photo which really caught my attention today, Matthew, is Blue Speck, and you've got some remarkable photographs of him, and also many good photographs of great races like the Helena Vale Cup finishes. But Blue Speck certainly caught our attention because of the fact that he won a Melbourne Cup, returned to WA and won the Helena Vale Cup, which is a fact that very few people would know. That Helena Vale Cup winner followed up a Melbourne Cup win.
Has anybody taken on the task of writing the history of the Helena Vale Racecourse, Matthew?
At the moment, no. There is one person has done a uni thesis on the history of the racecourse, and that has really helped, because that's quite comprehensive, and it's helped us understand the history of the racecourse. But unfortunately, not as yet, not a book or.
Well, there you go, Ernie.
Yes, it's a task.
In your spare time, mate, or even if you ever retire.
Yes, well, that's a good point. And talking about media, Max Simmons and Keith Gollan, who are two of the most famous racing riders, had their foundations there at Helena Vale. Max Simmons actually learnt to call races by standing in the street behind Helena Vale. Now, Matthew, what's the name of that street directly behind the track north?
It was originally called Salisbury Road. Today it's called Rothschild Place.
Right, well, Max used to stand over there, him and Neville Catchpole, watch the races from there, and Max fine-tuned his race calling. And Keith Gollan, who was well known as Orm under his pen name, he actually used to ride in the hurdle races, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, at Helena Vale. And then he'd go up to write his story in the press box, followed by doing race calls, then drive back to the WA newspapers and actually drive the newspaper van to Busselton. So,
really?
Well, I think he had a few punting expenses had to be covered, so that's why he topped off Saturday evening with a drive to Busselton.
Indeed. The late, great Max Simmons was one of the best race callers I've ever heard.
All time.
Fantastic.
43 Perth Cups he called.
Did he really? 43, yeah. Yeah, I saw him one day actually a while ago now, probably about, crikey, 20 years ago. They were living down in Mandurah, just near one of the golf courses there, and there was Max out on the veranda as we were hacking our way past.
Yes, he actually, right at the end, he ran a video store at Waikiki, or one of those suburbs in the southern area near Safety Bay.
Max, I had the honour of, I met Max once. Max was part of the Midland Old Boys, which is a group that meet once a year in Midland. And both Neville and Max were part of that, but Max used to do a phantom Melbourne Cup call because the Midland Old Boys lunch was held the week before Melbourne Cup. So Max would do a phantom race call at our lunch. So
yeah, good memories, great memories.
They're great memories. You'd go along, there wouldn't be a person on earth that would have had a bad word to say about Max. Fantastic man.
No, he was a personality of WA racing and won the award on that score, and later did a lot of work at Broome for the Broome Turf Club as well. So, and talking about great personalities of racing, a lot of people wouldn't realise that Paddy Connolly, who was one of the most famed owners in WA racing, he actually owned Helena Vale, or a portion of it, for quite some time, Matthew.
That's correct. Paddy owned the Helena Vale Race Club for around 30 years, and then he the ownership transferred to the WA Turf Club.
Well, we've got a lot more to learn about the Helena Vale Racecourse, so what we might do, boys, is take a break. Back with more shortly.
This is Remember When with Harvey Deegan on Perth 6PR.
Yeah, racing history with Ernie Manning and another very special guest in the studio tonight, Matthew Pavlinovich from the Midland and Districts Historical Society. Graham Webster was wonderful jockey, fantastic jockey as a matter of fact. I remember watching him ride. He was very closely linked to Helena Vale, wasn't he?
Yes, he certainly was. I spoke to Graham this morning about Helena Vale's best assets, and he said you could race in water up to the horse's knees and it was completely safe. He said it was one of the nicest tracks he rode on, and he rode all over the world, Graham. When you stop and think about it, so many overseas venues as well as Australian venues, and he rode some of the, probably four of the best horses I've ever seen in WA: an Asian Bow, Nawini, Raw Coral, and of course Starglow won a railway stakes. They were all ridden by Graham in their major wins, and so no better experienced jockey to talk about the best assets of Helena Vale.
Yeah, maybe Graham might be listening tonight. We don't really know. Mate, if you are listening and you're not too far away from your phone, we might get Katie to give you a quick call and see if you'd like to join us just for a couple of minutes to reminisce about Helena Vale. That'd be good.
Yes.
Matthew, the reputation that Helena Vale has is of being a very, very fast track, good for setting race records, if you like.
That's correct. When it was first constructed, the Helena Vale Racecourse, the directors, the owners of the racecourse at the start, they gave free hand to the architects and the surveyors, and directed and basically just told them that it had to be the widest and fastest course in the state. So, and the course was to be 1.25 miles around, so that's 1.6 kilometres, with its width of 40.2 metres. The width was reduced to 30.1 metres to accommodate a training track. So that's it built that reputation as a fast track.
And one of his outside assets, just outside the course, was the railway station, which was the centre of attention for the arrival of passengers and horses. The horses came on the train until later years when horse floats hit the road. But so, Matthew, that railway station, you might be able to give us a location of where that was actually located. Okay,
so the railway station, there was a siding that came in from the Perth to Albany railway line. And that's the old railway line that was through Swan View, through the tunnel, and it veered off into the racecourse, and there was a siding there with a platform, and that opened in the early 1900s, and it closed in 1963, 3 years before the current standard gauge line, the Avon Valley route, went through there. So they removed the siding and they removed the old original line.
We've got some good news for you. We've tracked Graham Webster down, and he's on the line now. How you doing, Graham?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good, thanks.
Yeah, Graham, this morning we were just mentioning that the best assets of Helena Vale Racecourse and a wonderful racetrack, and you were mentioning that it's completely safe even though there was heavy rain, that the track just remained firm and safe.
Yeah, it did, Ernie. Yeah, it didn't matter how much water we had. I've ridden there when there've been fills of water in the straight, but horses could always hold their footing there. They would never slip there.
Gee,
at Helena Vale.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Yeah. And Graham, what years would you have ridden there? You would have ridden there from the early 50s onwards.
Yeah, from 54 to when it closed.
Yes,
I rode there. Yeah, and I always enjoyed riding there. I had a bit of success there, but it was a beautiful big track, a beautiful big long home straight. And actually, it only had two turns. It had to turn out of the straight into the big long back straight, and then from the long back straight, it only had the one turn to the home straight.
Gee, that's remarkable.
Beautiful laid out track, and a very flat track too.
Yes. Graham, what would your memories of a good winner be at Helena Vale? Can you remember one that stands out in your memory of the bygone days of Helena Vale?
Yeah, I rode a few horses. I can't remember all. The horse called the Southerner was quite a very handy horse.
Yes.
I nearly won a Helena Vale Cup, which the horse I rode I thought could win, a horse called Deadlock, and he happened to get the last few strides a horse called Commixter, ridden by Donnie McClimate. You remember Donnie McClimate?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He rode Commixter and got up and beat me. And at the time, Ted McAuliffe trained Commixter, and I didn't know Ted at all at that time. As it turned out, he ended up being my father-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Well, you rode the Great Royal Coral for Ted McAuliffe as well.
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Yes, and he won a Perth Cup. Yep. And, Graham, I was saying just before you came on the phone that you've ridden four of the best gallopers I've ever seen in WA, an Asian Bow, Noah Winnie, Royal Coral and Starglow, an exceptional mare. So you've certainly ridden some superstars.
Yes, I have been lucky to get on horses like that. Yes, I got on Starglow and never got beaten on Starglow. I only rode her 7 times with 7 big wins, and Royal Coral, I was lucky to get on him. Actually, I broke Royal Coral in as a yearling.
Gee.
And just stayed with him all out for his career, and lucky enough to win on him in Melbourne.
Yes.
And when I was riding for Johnny Davidson, he had Starglow and No Winnie, so yes. He had Horpack at the same time as well, so it was just in the right era.
Certainly was, and Asian Bow, Graham, as a sprinter, he was just a champion as a sprinter.
Oh, he was, yeah. He was the fastest horse I ever rode.
Yeah, great memories.
Asian Bow, yeah.
Well, that's tremendous, Graham, to share those memories with us and have a chat about Helena Vale, because they are very valuable memories and a good assessment. And thanks very much, because so many people are saying that Helena Vale was a great course. It's just good to hear you back that up.
Yes, it's just such a shame that we still haven't got it.
Yeah,
we shouldn't let those assets go.
No, good sentiments, Graham. Thanks very much.
Yeah, good on you,
Okay,
Graham.
yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Graham.
Keep well, mate. Take care. Graham Webster, yes, a very, very skillful jockey.
Certainly, and highly respected, very popular, and so that was it. And of course, Graham mentioned a bit of history there about Helena Vale Cup. Today we spoke to a lady who gave us some trophies, or put some trophies on the table there, Siderian. That was a good memory there, Pat, today that we had Matthew at the presentation.
Yes, that's correct. We were presented with a trophy and a photograph of a winner of the Helena Vale Cup. I think 1952. Is that?
I'm pretty sure it's 52 Siderian.
Yes, Siderian. Yes, that's correct. By Keith Drage. But it wasn't a trophy. It was a dinner set. So something different. But thank you so much. Those were actually donated to our society. So
Wonderful.
Collection.
We had a listen to Kingston Town, who, as we mentioned, won 3 Cox Plates and came over here and trained at Helena Vale. What about a couple of the others? Now, I think Big won 2 Melbourne Cups. He was also over here and not raced around, but trained at Helena Vale.
Yes, I remember him up there with Bart Cummings, and a great horse.
All right.
Big.
Yep, here's the 74 Cup.
Battle Heights is up going for the lead now. On the outside, coming out to have a crack at a Zigloo. Leilani is looking for a run between them. Will need it. And here comes Captain Perry down the outside. And Turf Cutter. Turf Cutter is mowing grass. Battle Heights went to the front of the 200-metre mark from Leilani. Captain Perry on the outside then is Turf Cutter and Thing Big. Leilani is getting to Battle Heights, and on the outside, Captain Perry. Leilani just in front. Thing Big is picking it up down the outside, and Thing Big has got up to win the cup. Thing Big has won. Leilani is second. Third of the race then was Captain Perry.
Yep, Bert Bryant calling home Think Big in the 1974 Melbourne Cup, and he won again the following year, of course. We'll take a break. There's a lot more to talk about, and you've just floored me. I didn't know this, Ernie, but there's a military background, or there's a military component to the Helena Vale Racecourse.
It certainly was, both world wars, and we've got a celebrity. Well, I saw the photo today to prove that he was there. You can see the grandstand in the background, and an Anzac hero was at Helena Vale.
Okay, more coming up shortly, folks. Don't miss it.
This is Remember When with Harvey Deegan.
Yeah, welcome back, folks. If you've just joined us, we're having a great discussion with Ernie Manning. It's his regular night tonight for racing history, and Matthew Pavlinovich joining us from the Midland District Historical Society, and we're talking about the closure of Helena Vale Racecourse. Can't believe it's 40 years ago to the year that it closed for business. And just before the break, you mentioned a military connection.
Well, it's remarkable, and Matthew's going to give us the full details in just a moment, but in both World Wars, the ambulance division was based there, and they closed racing down for a little while, and a famous hero of Gallipoli. We've seen his photos there today, and so Matthew, perhaps you could just put us in the picture on the military history of Helena Vale.
So during World War I, racing ceased at the Helena Vale Racecourse. It became a venue for military training, and it was the quartermaster store for the nearby Black Boy Hill military camp in Greenmount. And again, when World War II broke out, Helena Vale was closed for racing, and the military occupied the site again, and it was used then as a field casualty station headquarters and transport for the Red Cross. But the interesting observation from World War I is that John Patrick John Simpson,
Simpson, a legend, absolute legend, wasn't he? Because even from grade 1, we were taught about Simpson and his donkey saving so many people who had casualties at Anzac Day in the famous Gallipoli campaign. And Matthew, we saw the pictures today of John Simpson there, and he was the only one not wearing a slouch hat.
Yeah, I think so. He stood out as the others had a slouch all had a slouch hat. He had just a field service cap on, and they were training before they went to Gallipoli at the Helena Vale Racecourse.
Yes, Harvey, you came up with the line just a moment ago about the famous donkey.
I've seen plenty of donkeys at the racecourse, usually handing out their money to the tote or the bookmakers.
Right. Yes,
And I'm one of them.
The beaten favourite. So, so that was an interesting sidelight of Helena Vale days. And, of course, the Black Boy Hill Camp was only just up the road, wasn't it?
Up the road, yeah, probably 2-3 kilometres up the hill. So it was a perfect, obviously it helped them out with, they had the wider spaces, obviously to train there.
And now, of course, anybody that's driving past the old Helena Vale site, they'll see it's a light industrial division. And in the final days of trials, they put, they obviously were sort of shaping up to go that way. They put the heavy power lines across the track. And we had a couple of old horses that used to live on the course up there. Jermaine was one of them. He was a very good galloper, and he lived in retirement there in the centre of the course. We used to see him every time we went to trials.
Mm.
And so certainly a celebrated course. And, of course, Paddy Connolly, he was there for 30 or 40 years, and then he virtually retired and became a recluse after that celebrated racing career.
That's correct, yeah. He retired in Kalamunda and became a recluse and sadly passed away.
Yes, that's he came from Sydney originally and had an enormous impact on WA racing. Yes,
and including owning the Helena Vale Racecourse.
And of course, I think he was somehow the Helena Vale raced at Goodwood Racecourse at some stage, didn't they? Which is now where the stadium is. They transferred some meetings down there, did they?
Yes, that's correct. During the war, World War II, they leased out the Helena Vale Race Club, leased out their race dates to the Goodwood Race Club in Burswood. So
yes.
all the race meetings that should have been held in Helena Vale were transferred to Goodwood.
And we ran the Helena Vale Cup until 20 years ago at Belmont, and I reckon Queen of the Pop might have been one of the last winners of the Helena Vale Cup that used to be part of the big Belmont Sprint double there on the long weekend.
Matthew, what else is happening now that you've had your big day today, commemorating the 40th anniversary, I suppose, of the closing of Helena Vale? What else is on the agenda coming up in the near future?
Within our society, we're just working. Obviously, there's a lot of venues, a lot of events that we'd like to commemorate and try to acknowledge. Obviously, the Helena Vale Racecourse was one of them. The other latest one that we've been doing is commemorating the former Middle Swan Primary School, and we've worked with Masonic Care, who are building an aged care facility at the former site of the old Middle Swan School. And we are now in the process of getting a plaque and photographs that will be on display within the aged care facility to acknowledge the former school that was there between 1953 and 1990.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And I know, Harvey, you're pretty keen to play a little bit more audio of another celebrated horse that trained at Helena Vale, and a lot of people are going to remember this one.
I'm sure they will. And we might go out on that note, because you've given us a very comprehensive run-through of the race. We've learnt a lot about it. I kind of knew of its existence, but had absolutely no idea of the extent of its history, and certainly not the military side of things too.
And, of course, the old grandstand, it's been removed, and it's actually been located locally, we think. We're not too sure.
Yeah, we believe it's in the Swan Valley on private property. So we're not 100% sure.
If anybody's seen the Helena Vale grandstand, can they give us a call, please? 133 882. We'd like to have it back. Matthew, thank you for coming in, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio. We'll look forward to regular sort of contributions from you and keeping us informed with what's happening in the Midland and Districts Historical Society. And thank you to you too, Ernie. We'll look forward to the next time we chat and you come up with another wonderful guest, as you always do, on the history of racing.
Thank you, Harvey. Matthew's been a VIP guest tonight with so much knowledge.
Thank you.
Certainly has. Let's go out with the 1978 Melbourne Cup. R1.
Taxan went to the lead in the straight with boldness with 400 to go. They're in front of Valadero, and here's Carew from the rear. And So-Called trying to thread his way through the field. Coming at them also is Dandelete. R1 gets the split. Boldness took the lead. R1 raced to him now with Carew the outside. R1 just the leader. Carew trying to peg him back from Boldness. Then So-Called and Dandelete. But it's R1 in front near the cup. Dandelete getting through in the centre, but R1 the outside has won the cup about a neck to Dandelete.